I'm just going to stop sharing the screen because I wanted to just introduce why I was doing this. It's been on my mind for a long time to produce some sort of a workshop. Initially, it was a workshop idea, and it was back when it was International Women's Day, which feels like totally months ago, but it's not that long ago. And I was talking about, during International Women's Day, the fact that a lot of people don't feel massively confident in talking about themselves. And how I know this is because I build a lot of websites, make a lot of brochures and things like that. And the bit that makes everybody cringe is the part where I say, I need 500 to 800 words all about you. And I can feel, actually, even though I can't see you, I can feel a lot of you that sitting there thinking, yeah, that's my worst nightmare. How do I talk about myself and sound really confident and really positive? Now, the next thing that kind of came to light was when I'm doing digital marketing workshops and seminars, one of the other things I always ask is, who writes a blog? And I'm always pretty much met with kind of an awkward silence. And it makes me think, oh goodness, why do people not feel comfortable writing blogs? So I've asked a lot of people, why do you not write blogs? And they say, well, I've not really got anything to say. Who would be interested in my stuff? Why would anybody be interested in me? So I started to look into this a lot more. So going back to International Women's Day, I wrote a blog about something called I Am Remarkable, and it was an incentive from Google. I'm actually going to share you the video from that so that you can see who came up with this idea. And it was a lady that works in Google in London, and it's since grown into a massive thing across the UK. I'm just going to share you that video now, just so that you can see it. Hoping you're seeing the shared screen now. Yeah. I'm going to play.
A lot of women grow up hearing that you shouldn't brag, it's not nice, it's not modest. But actually, if you're stating facts, it's not bragging, it's just telling the truth. My name is Anna Viner, and I founded the I Am Remarkable initiative. I Am Remarkable is a workshop that empowers women and underrepresented groups to practice the skills of self-promotion and celebrate their success, both professionally and personally. In the beginning of the workshop, we ask the participants to actually take a piece of paper and write down what makes them remarkable. And then we say, okay, now you need to stand in front of the room and read it out loud. And I think that's the moment where you hear, like the air is being sucked from the room. It's my favorite moment of the workshop. And then you see people go up and they're quite not sure, but they read it, and then people clap. And as the time moves on, you see that people open up more and more. And I think what's really exciting is that people feel really proud about themselves. 75% of people said that the workshop boosted their confidence. 78% of people said that it helped them portray their self-promotion skills at their job. There is a very uncomfortable stat that shows that both men and women don't like women who promote themselves. There is sometimes backlash for people who state their achievements, but actually we see that people who don't practice self-promotion, who don't share their accomplishments, are left behind. We see from research companies that invest in diversity, that have women on their leadership board, actually make more money. If you're a business leader and if your team doesn't represent the world out there, you probably need to change your team. Be open to criticism, be open to different ideas. Make sure you have at least that one person in the room that would challenge any decision that's being made. When we bring I Am Remarkable to teams within Google and companies outside Google, it really helps people understand that they need to rethink the way they do promotions and the way that they give pay rises and the way that they hire. But it's really the understanding that diversity matters, and it helps you make better business decisions.
So that was listening to Anna. She did it particularly about women, but I don't find it's just women. I find it's across the board. people are less likely to want to talk about themselves than they are to talk about other people. And that's where I started with this particular workshop, was to let's try and have a look at why this is, and why people think that they're not remarkable. I can probably tell you that the reason I'm good at this is because I used to be the same, and I used to think no one would want to hear what I had to say, no one would want to look at what I was writing. But then as I started doing it, I realised actually, yes, I have got something to say, and I am fairly expert in what I do. And there's the key. You can spot somebody, because I said fairly expert. I didn't say I am an expert in what I do, so I'm correcting myself already. So we're going to start using the slides again. I'm going to share with you my screen, and we're going to talk about why talking about being remarkable isn't easy. And I posted this on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago, and I got quite a few comments of people who said, yeah, I really should do this workshop. It's even the way that you just phrased it, Michaela, I felt a cringe, because I hate talking about myself. And then other people would come in and say, how can you not want to talk about yourself? You are a remarkable person. So sometimes it's better someone else saying about us. But what we're going to look at this afternoon is, what have you got that's worth saying? Because by saying that no one would listen to you, it's like saying, well, I haven't got anything in my business, nothing that I'm doing, nothing that I've got is worth talking about. And that's not true. We'll look at why how hard you find it to tell people about what your achievements are and about what makes you remarkable. It's going to be really hard not doing that sitting around a table, but I think we can do it. I think we can do it as a webinar. And we'll work together on developing what you've got to say. And some of this might be homework, and you should all have my email address, because I've already sent you a template to fill in for your blogging. So I'm going to set you some homework from this webinar. And in part 2, we're actually going to look at ways of blogging, because a lot of people will say to me, well, I haven't got the foggiest idea of how to start a blog or where to blog. So I'm going to show you some tools and show you some of the rules and regulations about writing a blog in terms of what Google wants to see from you. So what are we doing? What I'd like to try to do is overcome your fear of sharing information. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it in one webinar. It might be that we go on to do some other types of learning online. But it's understanding what is remarkable about you and what is remarkable about your business. A number of people that I talk to, and because I'm in marketing, I have to try and unearth what it is about a business that's special. And what I'll say is, tell me what's really special about your business. And people will say, well, actually, Michaela, there's nothing that special. We do dog walking, or we make cupcakes. And if you start off like that, then no one's going to want to buy from you, because you've got to believe in something that you're doing, and you've got to have a passion for what you believe in. And eventually we unearth that, and it gives them the confidence for you to discover that voice, so you feel more confident in talking about your company. So we can help you then set things up so that you're in a position to be able to blog. And there's lots of different ways of blogging as well. So if you think about it, has anyone ever told you that you're amazing or remarkable or awesome? And how did that affect you? How did that make you feel? We've got lots of mindfulness coaches and things like that in the call. So how did that make you feel when somebody told you that you're amazing? It's far easier for somebody you know well to actually tell you that you're amazing. Now, unfortunately, when I sit you down in front of a piece of paper and ask you to write that down, what makes you remarkable, how does that make you feel? Probably a little bit uncomfortable. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat. So when somebody says that to you, the answers that I'm getting, when somebody says that you're amazing, yeah, this is really great, because it's nice for me to see this feedback. People make you think, when they say you are amazing, you think, wow, really, that's me. Tracy feels shocked. But why feel shocked? If they're saying it, then obviously you've done great stuff. And do you know what? during this crisis that we're going through, I'm seeing so many people behaving in a remarkable way. The things that people are doing are actually inspiring, and it's giving people an opportunity, kind, nice people, to be those remarkable people. And Tim says it's a big ego boost, but you have to follow it up with what's next. Yeah, there is a part of that where you almost feel it's called, I think some of you coaches in the panel will say, it's like an imposter syndrome. You feel like, is that me that you're talking about? But then when you have to sit down and write that information down, what is stopping you? What is stopping you from writing so much about what you do and about yourself? So it'll be interesting to see what you've got to say there, because that is the problem. Because you've got, from one hand, somebody telling you that you're really good and you know, you've made a difference to their lives, you've impacted on their business, whatever it is, a service or a product that you produce. But then when you come to have to say that about yourself, then it's like a completely different story. Nobody ever wants to write their own CV. And for me, nobody ever wants to write. I had a conversation the other day with a lady, and we've just started her website, and I said the first thing to do is let me get the information for the About You page. And she said oh no, that's my worst bit, I'll get to that last. So that's the last thing she wants to talk about. And she's an eminent surgeon, so she's somebody very, very well respected, but she still doesn't have that to say. So let's start thinking about what it is that stops you thinking that you're remarkable. So what is actually remarkable about you? Developing that ability to self-promote either your skills or your business. You've got to be able to do this to grow a business. If you are promoting yourself and your business and your expertise, it's not showing off. It's telling people, I am the expert in that. And understanding what makes you special and discovering that power helps you to create some really engaging content. Now, I don't know about you, but I obviously have to read a lot of websites. I go online a lot. I have to look at a lot of websites, and I can tell the difference if somebody's written with some passion, or if somebody's just got somebody else to write something for them, or worse still, they've just done a bit of a copy and paste from somebody else's website that was also written badly. So getting that engaging content comes from here, it comes from your heart. So let's have a think about why we actually feel uncomfortable. And Anna related to that in the video. It comes from probably a very, very long time ago. So why do we all feel uncomfortable? Has anybody got any examples of why they feel uncomfortable? So once you've discovered this, it actually gets easier. So see where that discomfort is. Did somebody say something to you? When we're children, we're encouraged not to stand out so much, not to speak out, not to brag, not to show off. It's quite often a conditioning for children. It's also in some organisations, you work in an organisation and you don't feel like you're able to give your ideas. It's considered bragging, it's considered brash, and people won't like it. So we kind of sit back and we don't do it. But if we can try and identify where those fears come from, I'm really clear about when I was younger, it was very much a case of you sit down, you shut up, you listen, you don't have ideas, you don't ask questions. And I think talking about yourself was actually quite a frowned on thing. But if anybody can have a think about what potentially was it your parents perhaps that said, no, don't brag, don't show off. I can I can actually remember my mum saying, nobody loves a show off. I can actually hear her words. And John's just said, he's conditioned to feel that actions speak louder than words. It'd be interesting to investigate, John, where that comes from. actions speak louder than words. Is that a particular person, or is that something that went on throughout as you were growing up? I don't think anyone has necessarily said it, but it seems to be part of our culture. Yeah, we don't like praise, do we? We kind of do think that, oh, are they really talking about me? It is a very, very difficult thing. Thank you, Alice. And I think we do, as a culture, we don't promote this. Talking about being remarkable, even the word remarkable makes people cringe. If I said you were remarkable, then you sort of think, that's a bit weird. and thank you. Yeah, you are. It's a culture thing. And maybe if we spent more time together promoting and praising each other, we would actually not have this feeling of not being able to say it. And the good news is I have got a drink. Okay, so what's stopping you? What's stopping you in this fear? It's not just about sharing how talented you are that stops you achieving. It's really important, as you saw in the video clip, when Google started to address this situation and started getting people to believe in themselves and believe that they had something to say and believe that they were remarkable, then they actually started to see an improvement in their own business. And that's Google we're talking about. They're the people who lead the way in HR and things like that. They implemented this and they got people to big each other up, Tracy, as you say. And what happened was they started to be able to talk about how talented they were without feeling like they were showing off. And from that, they started to achieve. Because if you can't do that, then it stops you putting yourself forward. So you don't put yourself forward for, if you're working in a company, you wouldn't go for a promotion. In business, it's different because now these are your businesses. So you don't put yourself forward to go on the radio. You don't put yourself forward to write that article for somebody. You don't put yourself forward to guest blog for another company. It stops you doing all of that. It stops you writing that blog and thinking that people are not going to want to listen to what you've got to say. So overall, it stops you. You might be putting out all the best marketing in the world, but it's not coming from you. It's not coming from your heart, and therefore people are not engaging with it. So it stops your business growing. And I think that is such an important part of what we're looking at here. It's you that's actually blocking your business from growing because you're not wanting to give that. Not everybody, I don't know if everybody's doing that, but I know from dealing with a lot of people, and I work with a lot of people in the care profession, in healthcare particularly, we do healthcare marketing, and that I know that they've got that fear behind them when they have to start talking. And Debbie, you are absolutely right. It's the head above the parapet. That's another one that comes from my childhood. Don't put your head above the parapet because you're going to get shot down. And it is so true. I'll tell you a story. I can write a 80-page website and it can be absolutely spot on. But the only thing somebody will mention is the thing that I got wrong, which might be a link that's not working. And that's just at the test stage. So nobody ever says, oh, 99.9% of that is brilliant. They just say, actually, that doesn't work. And maybe if we just address that in our own selves as well, when somebody does something, maybe praise first before you sort of pick on where the spelling mistake is or where the error is. But we are really frightened of being criticised. And certain sectors, I think, are different. So Helen says neuroscience, our brains, we can be wired that way. And it takes a lot. It does. It's neuro-linguistic programming, I believe. And we've got Latif talking on Friday about neuro-linguistic programming. We have to rewire our brains to be able to say, actually, do you know what? I am pretty remarkable in my own self. A little bit comes with age, I think, as well. But that's certainly that. I've been criticised for work for years. And yeah, it does. If every time you put your head above parapet, that's from Catherine, every time you put your head above the parapet and somebody shoots you down, what do? You don't do it. You just stop. And then you start putting yourself forward. And then you start to believe that you're not a person that's got anything to say. And that is really bad. And Catherine, I'm so glad that you resigned. And I understand that, because you've now been conditioned to not say how good you are. And I've met you, and you are going to be a brilliant PA. You really are. You're so organised. I dream of being that organised. So when you're comparing your business to others, that's a really good one, Tracy. Comparing your business to others instead of working on your own strength. I do it. I still do it. I have to check myself from doing that, because I always think everybody else is better and knows more and has done more training than me. And actually, they're probably not. Probably they're just really talented at talking about doing stuff. So they can talk about it all day, but they probably don't actually put it into practice, as we said. So Alice says she delivers training, and when she goes back through her feedback, she remembers the criticism. You can get 30 people giving you positive feedback, Alice, can't you? And then you remember. I can actually remember every single person that's given a negative review ever in my entire business. I can't remember every positive one, and that is such a bad way to be. Claire says, I do that, Alice. It's so annoying. I think we all do it. It's the type, we wouldn't be on this webinar and talking about this if we were the people who are on LinkedIn saying what an expert they are in everything. We wouldn't be sat listening to me talk about it. So let's delve a little bit more into it, because we've got to discover what it is. What is the fear? I mean, is anybody in this call actually a bit of a fraud and knows nothing about the subject that they're trying to promote? I'd be interested to know that. So if you really are an imposter, and you've got a business and you've set up a business, but you know nothing about what you're doing, then put your hand up now. And no hands. So you're not. Good. I don't know what I just said if you did. So we've got to change that. And the way to change it is to positive reinforcement. And I am not a mindfulness coach. I am not a well-being coach. I'm a marketeer. So I'm looking for you to dig down and find this information. And I want to know from you guys what you think is remarkable about you. And it's going to be a hard start, because this is a little bit like what Anna was talking about, where you start by writing it down on a piece of paper. You're writing it in the chat, but people are going to see it. And it is important that we do this, because we need to share some things in that chat, which are examples of us overcoming challenges, for example, changing our job and having a passion and drive to do something that we love. That's remarkable. Coming up with a solution to a problem that's going to help other people, remarkable. Helping people. You know, a lot of you that are in here, you help people every day. And if all you put in that chat is, I go to work to help people, then that is remarkable. Some of you are creative. So by being creative, that itself is remarkable. By having training, by doing training, by teaching and coaching others, all remarkable, amazing things to do. And Debbie, you've posted for me, that's great. Somebody started this. As your role as a business advisor, it's all of those things, isn't it? It's coming up with solutions to problems. Every day you're helping people, and every day you're delivering drive and passion. You can't go to work and just sort of say, I'm having a bad day. You have to big it up every day. And that is remarkable. So from Alice, my experience, my professionalism, my perseverance, and you do care what you do. And that sets you apart, because there's a lot of people who don't care about what they do. Natalie, thank you. Oh, Natalie, I've written about Natalie, and she was so made up with what we wrote about her, because she couldn't, you can't write the same about yourself, but she set up her business to provide a service, which is accommodation for people, and it is such an amazing service. I'll show you the blog we wrote about Natalie, because I met Natalie in a workshop, and she really is truly inspirational. And my colleague Julia was with me, and she said, let's write about Natalie, because I'm actually inspired by what she does. So Natalie, that is amazing. Does anyone else want to share anything that they do that is purely remarkable, because all these things, if I sent you a page with all these things on, you'd think, gosh, is this like a workshop full of people who believe in themselves and believe they're remarkable? Claire, you lived your experience achieving things that others thought were impossible, and you proved them wrong, and you face challenges every day and you adapt to situations. Claire, again, I've met you, and I do believe that your business is remarkable. What you do every day and the amount of travel that you do and the way that you've developed that business is just amazing. And I can tell by the way you speak, you just love the business. And Helen, she's been unwell and stopped working as a teacher and then learned mindfulness. I mean, how hard is it? I did pretty much the same. I worked in marketing in a big company in London, and I hit a wall. I got really poorly, and I set up my own business. And that in itself, particularly at my age, was remarkable. So that is fantastic. They're coming in so fast now, I can't read them fast enough. So I'm going to just scroll back up a little bit because I miss it. If I miss you, I'm really, really sorry. So Tim, creativity, passion and drive for making, using and recycled materials. So you make handbags from recycled materials, Phil, Tim. And that's had a massive, it has a huge impact on the environment. And that is such a big thing. Anne has joined in now, and she says she creates wow moments in businesses when they have had blocks in communication with within their business and also with their customers. So helping businesses, helping them reconnect and looking at the customer service, looking at the marketing, looking at the way they're talking. And Anne is presenting on Monday, and I urge you all to go onto that webinar because Anne is going to be talking about finding a new voice as we return to some level of normality and all go back to not social distancing and changing. Shelley, you saved a local swimming pool from closure and now have one of the most successful swims. Sorry, the chat moves as I read it. Most successful swim programs in the country, and you've won awards, and you're proud of what my team achieve with young and old swimmers. And you, it's proud of you. Yes, you're proud of your team, and that's to be condoned, but you're proud of yourself as well. Wanting to help people with their aches and pains, which in some circumstances will just improve their livelihood. Absolutely, I think one of my examples later on that I'm going to share with you is a Google search that I did when I had a bad injury to my neck, and I found somebody, and it's quite funny actually because I saw him on a list, and I thought, oh, I hope he's not going to be on the call because he's going to be really embarrassed. And I found him through a blog that he wrote. So John, listening to healthcare professionals and tailoring development opportunities to help them provide quality care, that's brilliant. John, nice to hear from you. Developing new ideas and projects and getting people, getting buy-in and funding to make them happen. That is such an awesome skill to have, to actually help businesses to go forward and make things happen when they're stuck. So a couple of you are saying that. Helping to find land and build people their own homes. That is just, do you know what? I'm just blown away. I'm just blown about actually being able to write this and understand what you believe in and believe in yourself. And there's some of you that haven't written anything in here. Shahina has written again, some of these are just coming through to all panellists, so we'll advise you again if you can try and find the all panellists and attendees box. Shahina offers something that's unique and essential to life, even more so now. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that you're telling me, you're going to be kind of key, you know, right up at the front when we come to going back to normal, being able to help people get back to normal. So if you haven't got anything to say, then there's a problem with the world. So that's the 95% pure oxygen. I've been reading about that. That is such an interesting thing. So even if you haven't shared, I asked you to bring a pen and paper. Just as we're talking, write these down. Write down what you believe you have done that's remarkable. Just write it on a piece of paper. That's the first hurdle of getting over this fear of showing off that you think that you're doing. If you went onto social media and you saw some of the things that are going on now as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and you saw some of the really, really amazing stuff people are coming up with, innovative. I saw one just this morning where one of the hospitals were asking people to crochet little hearts, and they were in pairs, and they gave one heart to the person that was very, very poorly, and they gave the other heart to the relatives so that they felt connected. And it's almost like you're emotional. Who came up with that idea? That is a remarkable idea. Do we sit back and think, well, they're showing off or they're trying to get attention? No, we don't. We sit back and we think, wow, that's remarkable. And that's what people think about you. So it's disassociating yourself from this past thing where you can't show off and you can't talk about what you've done, and actually starting to find a voice where you can share what you do every single day. And I can just tell by the chat, some of the people in this group, you help people to understand every day what's wrong, how to help them. So I've got from Amanda, she knows that she's helping people overcome anxiety and understanding their emotions. So Amanda, sometimes it's really funny, we can help other people, but then the hardest people to help are ourselves. It's a little bit like the decorator who has a house that needs painting. We leave ourselves to last on the list because it's really it's like we don't think that we matter. So it's being able to put ourselves into that. I actually do matter. Yes, Alice, that was really lovely. It brought tears to my eyes when I saw that this morning. So I've got a poll for you. Tony, can you bring up my first poll? How remarkable are you, I think it's called. No, not yet. The other one. Sorry. How remarkable are you? I think it's the second poll. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how remarkable are you? And 1 is you're not in the slightest bit remarkable. You've never done anything to impact society. And number 5 is you think you're one of the most remarkable people you know. So if you can vote on there for me, if you can see that on your screens, just click. Is it working? Tony, is it working? I'll have to unmute Tony. Ah, yes, we've got the results. So it's as we expected. Nobody thinks that they're totally unremarkable and they never did anything to help society. Some of us think we're kind of a little bit remarkable. Most of us are completely down the middle. And what we're trying to aim for is getting into a 4 or a 5, so that we think that perhaps we are one of the most remarkable people we know. Maybe not the most remarkable, because we're always comparing each other to, we're always comparing lots of other people to ourselves. But in the moment, how we feel in one moment, do we feel remarkable? Yes. Hopefully just sharing that and seeing how remarkable other people are and that they find you remarkable, then that makes a difference. I'm just going to close that poll down. So the next job is we're going to look at 5 things that make you remarkable. It's great that you've all typed in the chat that you think of things that you can tell people, and it's really inspiring to see all those amazing things that you're doing every day. On a piece of paper, I want you to write. You don't need to share it in the chat, though you can if you would like. 5 things that make you remarkable. And just let's pause for a minute and just work on that. Just think about that. 5 things that make you remarkable. things you do every day, things that you've done, things that you've achieved, training that you've got, experience that you've got. 5 things that make you remarkable. They don't have to relate to work, Alice, no. It's just remarkable in any way, in any part of your life. 5 things. I'm going to try and do it myself, because it doesn't hurt to keep doing this exercise. 5 things that make you remarkable, awesome, inspiring. And while you're just thinking of them, I'm just going to have my cup of tea. So they can be any part of your life. Go on, you can do a few more. You've probably got to 2 or 3. Really think. It can be back at school. What did you do that was inspiring at school? What did you do on the sports field? What did you do when you helped a person that nobody actually ever knew about? What have you done in the last 2 weeks that's been inspiring, even if it's doing someone else's shopping, even if it's just checking up on someone else? What have you done that's inspiring? Hands up if you've got 5. I can't see the hands up. Everybody's hands up now. A few people waiting in there. Come on, Shahina. Hayley. Catherine, you've not got your hand up yet. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. Catherine, you've got 4. Brilliant. Shelley, you've got 5 now. It's brilliant. Come on, Maria. 5 things. Or I'm going to start helping some of you because I know you. So 5 things that just make you stand out, something that's remarkable. And you've not got your hand up yet, so I'm assuming that you haven't. Amanda's got 5 and feeling very remarkable now. Alex and Amanda, I'm just waiting for your hands to go up. So it's really good to see that you're actually getting 5. It just takes a little bit of digging. So 5 things that make you remarkable, give you something to hold on to, that you've actually said, you've written down on paper. And maybe the next workshop that we do, we actually bring groups of you in and you can tell us, and you can actually sit where I'm sitting on the camera and tell us about why you're remarkable, because that's really getting over it. But the reason we had to look at all this is because we had to understand what makes us that remarkable person, because that means that we have got something to say. So we might be the best at a specific topic. We might be expert in a particular field, and a lot of you healthcare workers there, a lot of you are coaches, a lot of you, that type of business. What makes you the best at that? Why do you appeal to some people? Is it because you've been very, very highly qualified, you've been doing it for a long time, you've got lots of empathy, you're the best in the topic that you do? And then the way that sometimes I look at this is I look at people who also do the same thing. And I think, well, they haven't quite got my experience, or they've not done all the courses that I've done. They're not as qualified as me. They're just not as good as me. So why on LinkedIn are they looking like they are the best? And why on a blog do they look like they know what they're talking about? So there's a whole number of reasons why we don't put this into practice and why we don't share all our information. And one of them quite often is time. We think that we just don't have the time to do all of this. So I'm going to run through, in the second part, I'm going to run through how we can actually create some content and understand. By understanding how good we are at everything, we can put that into something. And it might be that you're writing about specific things. So if you're in healthcare, for example, you're writing about a specific problem. So if I was talking in terms of dermatology, I might be talking to you about acne. If you are a mindfulness coach, I might be talking to you about a specific element of mindfulness or a specific problem, such as stress. And at the moment, there's lots and lots of things that you can talk about, because as the world is returning to normal, everybody doesn't quite know where they fit in. So it's really, really, it's a very, very difficult time that brings a lot of opportunity for us to be able to stand up and say, right, yes, I know about this. So we're going to move on to part 2, which is starting to put into practice being remarkable. So once we understand that we are remarkable, then we can start to say and talk about it. And what I'm going to do is just pause for a couple of minutes, let you all get a drink, stretch of your legs, because we've been going for, let me have a look on my phone, almost an hour. So if you just take 5 minutes, and then we're going to be looking at actually putting this down on paper and writing a blog where everyone can see it online about how good we are and how much we know about our subject. So just 5 minutes, which allows some of us to nip to the loo, get another cup of tea, and whatever we need to do. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes. You can continue typing in the chat, and Tony and I can read the chat as you're there. It's good to see so many people. New people have joined and you've not written in the chat who you are, so it'd be good to see. If you've joined us and you haven't introduced yourself, and not everybody's got the hand up, so not everybody found 5 things about being remarkable. We'll have to set you some extra homework. Debbie, you mustn't have been registered at the start. Yes, I will email that to you. I just need your email address. Or maybe Tony, can you email that to Debbie because you've received it? I'm just going to unmute you.
I'll sort that, Michaela.
So I've sent a template out to everybody. It's nothing fancy. It's just an Excel sheet. And what we're going to be doing is filling that in later on. So I've got a template. So if you've not got the template, then just let us know in the chat, and we'll need your email address. Everybody who registered early would have got it. If you registered a bit later, I didn't get a chance to send it out to everybody there. It looks like I should be able to show it actually. No. So it looks like this. So you should have a copy of this. Okay. And it clicks through and it forms a little bit of a plan. So, oh, I've got loads of chat to catch up on. Your 2-year-old daughter is paying attention to you talking about how remarkable you are. I think so. I think as if we've got children, then we need to change this for their generation. We need to make sure that we're not creating a generation of people who are not scared to actually say how remarkable we are. Obviously, don't want them showing off, but there's a difference. That is sweet. Hayley Hayley's Speech Mum Limited. Hayley, you have been on some of my workshops, so I remember now. Children's speech and language therapist. I started working privately last month. Oh, wow. And do you know what? You have got so much to say, and I can say that because I've met you, Hayley, in one of the workshops, and the stuff that you know and the background that you've got is just incredible. It's wrong not to even have a blog, because if you think about some of the stuff online people are reading that's not even right, and they're using it, particularly if you look at things like Instagram, and people are going to these social media platforms to find information about such technical stuff, and they're not getting good information. It must drive you crazy. It drives me mad. So, but the remedy for that is actually doing that. It's nice to see you again, Hayley, albeit online. So some people have snuck in here. If you want to introduce yourself, Yusuf, I can see you. Sarah Walmsley, I can see you. And Anne, I definitely have sent it to you, I'm sure, but maybe we need to send it again. Or maybe I went to send it because you registered quite late. So yes, Hayley, you are going to be doing a blog by the end of tonight, I think. Anybody else not got the document? And anybody want to say just hello if you've not already said hello? Catherine now has it. I definitely sent it to you, Catherine, because you were one of the first registered. So just some people that have joined a little bit later and we didn't say hello to. We've got Yusuf here, and Yusuf is from Enterprise for All. John, if you share me your email, I can send it out to you. Or Tony will. I think I have sent it to you. So you didn't expect to do this, did you? Well, maybe I didn't. I don't recognise your email address, John. So just taking a few more minutes just to get up, stretch your legs, go and get some more sheets of paper so that you can fit more about how remarkable you are on the sheets of paper, and have a look if you... No, if you registered yesterday, I should have sent you an email. Maybe check junk. But we'll send you another one anyway. Whichever email address you registered with, I sent an email out with a form on and just welcoming you and saying, bring a pen and paper so that you can talk about yourself. Okay, so once we're ready, I've got a few things to share with you now. And first off, we're going to start putting being remarkable into practice. It's important that once we know we're remarkable, we know where we're going to talk about being remarkable. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my area of expertise now, which is Google, and looking at how people see you and how Google sees you as well. So one of the ways that we can really get out there and really get our information out there is blogging, content and news. And it can go onto our website, or we can look at starting a separate blog. I'm going to talk about those two different options as we go through. So we need to decide how we're going to get our expertise and our areas of skills out there. And we need to look at what the best way for that is. So hopefully, after we've talked a little bit, blogging doesn't quite fill you with so much dread. And I know some of you that are on the call have actually sat through the workshops, and you've been the ones that have said, no, I wouldn't blog. What would I say? And cringed a little bit when I talked about blogging. So let's just have a look. And some of you have seen this before, but I thought we'd remind ourselves what actually is a blog. Now, we think of a blog as being kind of a different thing to how I think of a blog now. And the reason being that you see bloggers. So people who are fitting into that category of bloggers would be travel bloggers, who are that type of family that you see that travel around the world with their children, and everything looks amazing and it's a completely different life and you don't really associate with it. So there's that type of blogger. Then if you're in maybe beauty and certainly in the line of the oxygen therapy and aesthetics and beauty, you get beauty bloggers, and they also have this lifestyle that they blog about. And you think of bloggers as being like that. And really what a blog actually is it's a truncation of the expression weblog or weblog, which originally was kind of like a diary that people started putting on the World Wide Web or the internet. And it kind of was just about what they've had for the tea. If they were mummy bloggers, they blogged about prams. If they were travel bloggers, they blogged about what they were doing. It's kind of changed now, and that still goes on. And you do get a lot of people that actually make a living just from being bloggers. This isn't what we're talking about here. Feel free to become a blogger, and there's nothing wrong with that. But blogging now in 2020 is different. It's about content. It's almost like a diary. Sorry, it's not a diary. It's a way to put your expertise out online and talk about things that are important to you. And you do that by either putting it onto your website and then sharing it out across your social media to bring more people to your website. And that's the important part of this. We're not doing it because we want to get free holidays, or it would be nice though if we could get some free holidays. We're not doing that. We're doing it because we want to make things interesting. We want people to find us because of our expertise and our skills. And then what we do is we take that blog and we optimize it and we lift your website in Google. So when we could get found by what we do and what we're talking about, people have found the right person. And I'll give you some examples of that a little bit later on. So blogging now is about creating content and news, and it's passionate. It should come from your heart so that people can get to know you. A lot of you work in your own businesses, so what you say is about what you do, and that's how we do it. A blog in Google has its own life. It works differently to normal content. And we can look at the keywords that we use in the blog to help Google sort out the right information to deliver it to the right people. And they can then find what they're looking for and they can associate with you. So let's have a look at how we can blog. And it's interesting, actually, the different ways that you can blog. It depends on whether you've got a website. So if you've got a website, you can generally add a blog to your website, even if it's an e-commerce site. So if you've got an online shop, you can usually link a blog in there as well. WordPress is my go-to tool for blogging. There are lots of other platforms that you can use for blogging. I'm going to focus a little bit about WordPress because it works with lots of other shopping channels. It works with lots of e-commerce shops. And from my experience, a lot of people have got a WordPress website. So it makes it easier to blog because you've got WordPress. It doesn't mean that it's impossible to blog if you're on one of the other platforms like Wix, Weebly, Tumblr or Blogger also offer you a blogging channel. That's if you've already got a website. A standalone blog is built on a blogging platform. So you can actually blog within a platform. You don't have to have a website. And the top 5, as of fairly recently, blogging platforms would be WordPress. WordPress is still number 1. Blogger, Tumblr, Squarespace and Wix. And I know from the people that have been on our workshops before, pretty much Wix, Squarespace and WordPress would cover most people's, unless they've got an e-commerce like Shopify, few of you have got EKM sites. It'd be interesting in the chat to know what your websites are. The reason I'm talking today about WordPress is pretty much purely because that's the majority. The other good thing about WordPress is when you look at blogging in WordPress, it's really quite straightforward, and there's so much help online. There's so many, there's millions of active users on WordPress. So it means that everybody's written a YouTube video about how to blog on WordPress. So if you get stuck, you can always find online the answer to fix what you're trying to do. So I find blogging in WordPress is one of the easiest. But what we need to do just before we get, if I just go back a couple of slides, you'll notice in WordPress that I've got wordpress.org and wordpress.com. So there's two separate platforms, and a lot of people confuse this when they first start going to blog. So I'm going to try and share with you the difference between the two. So when we look at wordpress.com, what we have is a blogging platform. Okay, so this is purely where your blog is hosted on their site, and you can have a free one. And depending on how much information you put on there, it just stays free. So you start off with free, you can go to personal, which is £3 a month, and so on. So it's a different type of platform to wordpress.org, which I would call, in marketing, call this the real WordPress. And what this is not it's not a website, it's not a blogging site, it's actually a software that runs a website. So it's a completely different situation to posting your blog on the WordPress site. So wordpress.org is the real WordPress. It's an open source, it's free. And all you need is a domain and a host. So that's why it's sometimes called self-hosted WordPress. And it's a free software. If you click over to wordpress.org, you can download the software. It's quite simple to use. As long as you've got a hosted domain, let's just clear up what domains and hosting are, just in case we're not quite clear on that. So the domain is your URL. So my URL is www.guardianangelmarketing.com. Okay, and that is your personal URL. So that's your domain, and if you own your domain for your business, that is great. You will have bought that domain maybe from somebody like GoDaddy, 123Reg, or FastHost, or one of those domain companies where you buy the domain, and until you do something with it, it just sits there as being your domain. And then you buy hosting, and hosting is a little bit like the storage space where your website or anything you put online on that domain sits, and that puts it onto the internet. Everything is saved in there, and it's just like a little bit of a warehouse where you put all your stuff in. And you'll need to pay for that. You can pay through, again, usually the domain companies will also provide hosting. Just to give you some sort of a ballpark, your domain, it can cost anything between £1. It's always interesting to see how much people have paid for the domain. If you were looking at, let's say, somebody mentioned CBD before, I've seen people pay £2,000-3,000 for a CBD domain because they've all been bought up. So be creative with your domain. It should represent your company quite well. And then you'll need to pay for hosting. I think the maximum I would think about paying for hosting with some level of somebody setting it up for me would be about £80 for a year's hosting. You can get that a lot cheaper, but you would have to set that up yourself. So if you've got a website, you've already got your domain, and most likely, well, you will already have your hosting. That means that you can already add a blog, and you've probably already got a blog, you're just not using it. Okay, so looking at the steps to blogging. Number one, decide on where you're going to blog. Are you going to blog into your website, or are you going to be creating a new blog on one of the blogging platforms? Is it hosted or free? There's pros and cons to both of these options, whether it's hosted or free. If it's hosted and it sits on your website, everything you have belongs to you. if you're blogging in another platform, it doesn't belong to you. So you've got to take that in mind. So one day you might want to own it when you become really rich and famous and have a franchise. You would want to own your own blog. So do you start your own blog on your own domain? And then the next thing is to design it. Decide what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And there's lots and lots of resources available online. I'm going to show you when the COVID-19 crisis first started, I thought I was going to be sitting back and I'd lose all my clients and I wouldn't be doing very much. So I actually started building a website. I'll show you that, and I built it as a blog. So it'll depend on where you blog. It'll depend on what platform you use. Okay, so if you've got an existing website, and we're going to have a look in the back of a website and look at actually adding a blog a bit later on in the call, then you can host your blog there. So this is the backing of my new, this is the Enterprise for All website. And what we can do is we add it as posts here. So in a website, in a WordPress website particularly, you see posts, and you see pages, okay? And there's two different things. Both of them are for content. Now, a lot of people will say to me, do I build my website as posts or pages? You blog in posts and you create your static content in pages. So in WordPress websites, you've got that ability to choose which you do. So your posts will be chronologically listed. So it depends on the date. The publication date is the utmost importance. What you see is Google will, on a search engine result, will first of all deliver you pages from websites, and then you'll notice it turns to more current things like news. Particularly now when you're Googling things to do with COVID-19, you'll find static pages from the government, but then further down you'll find news articles from all of the news channels. And that's because the first bit is the static stuff, and the second bit is the chronological stuff that's coming in, so that Google is constantly refreshing that stuff. So if you write a really good blog, it can have a lifetime within the middle section of Google for a reasonable length of time if it's in a niche sector of what you're doing. And the publication date is the utmost importance. That's the thing that Google's looking for. It's looking for something quite current, not something back 10 years ago. And posts are streamed onto the blog page in an RSS feed. And you can use categories and tags so people can search in your blog for specific things. So if you are doing lots and lots of services, if you're delivering a whole range of treatments, for example, then what you can do is you can categorize and tag them so that you can see, people can go in and read a similar blog. Pages are different. These are the main body of your website, and they're static one-off things. It doesn't matter what time you do it. They're usually navigated from the site menu, so you can move around, and they also have a hierarchy because they're in the menu. So Google, although it treats them the same and it uses the same algorithm, it delivers different things in different search engines. So by putting new blogs onto your website, new posts, what it does is it gives you constantly refreshed information into your website. And Google's there, and I always think I'm quite old now, so I think of Google as being like a person that sits there in the background going, actually, yeah, they really love their website. They're putting loads of really good blogs with lots of good content. I'm going to show that to people. And pretty much that's what happens. So, with that in mind, we need to consider search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is SEO, and it literally labels the content that you're putting in your website is labeled so that Google can find it. Now, here's the thing. Your blog needs to be read easily by people, an actual human being, but it also needs to look attractive to an algorithm. And this is the difficulty in getting things found in Google. So if I write a killer blog about speech therapy for children, for example, if I write that killer blog And it is amazing. If it's not written and set out in the right way for Google, people won't find my blog. So we also need to get good with this SEO. And there's lots of tools we've got that I'm going to show you that will help you to write. But at the end of the day, it's got to appeal to people. Have you ever gone onto a blog, started reading it, and only read it for like 2 seconds and then clicked off the website because it's too hard to read? That type of blog doesn't do well in Google, because if you only spend 2 seconds reading it, Google measures that and it says, do you know what? No one really likes that. Nobody wants to read it. People keep going to it and coming straight off it, and that's called a bounce. So we don't want to do that. We want to engage people in our writing. So we have to look at keywords to help people find your business, first of all. We have to write it for people and for algorithms, and we've got to investigate our keywords as well. So I'm going to give you an example. That's always my best way of showing it, and anybody that's been to one of my workshops has probably heard the example before, because I have some really commonly used examples where I've investigated my own search. So here's an example. I had a tension headache and I had neck pain, and I live in Chorley. So I woke up at 5 o'clock one morning and I typed that into Google, because I thought I need to go to somebody who does some sort of sports massage or something like that. And I actually found quite a few different things, and I did a few different searches. First of all, I put neck pain, Chorley, and I got a few different people. I couldn't find, then I put tension headache and neck pain, and I was narrowing down my search to find something. And what I actually found in the end, let me see if I can get something that will, no, never mind. I thought I could use a better highlighter. What I actually found was this, and it was a story or a blog about tension headaches and neck pain. And I went onto it, and although it's quite complex and it talks about cervicogenic headaches and things like that, I knew that that's where my headache came from. So I actually read the blog. Lucy, it's really funny. Lucy used to work at SB Sports Massage. I'm going to tell you the whole story then. I see Danny now, but when I read this, it was before Danny owned it. And I read it, and it was written by somebody else. By the time they came into work in the morning, because I get up quite early, so it's 6 o'clock when I was doing this Googling, I'd read this blog. I'd already contacted them on Facebook, filled out 2 contact forms in the website, and left a message on their voicemail just from reading that blog. So that blog then clicks through to their website, and from their website, I was then able to navigate. I was able to go to their Facebook and see what they were about. I liked what I saw in Facebook. I didn't bother with Twitter. I went then to their, I looked around. I think I went to their LinkedIn page, and I'd read all of that blog by the time, before I even made my decision. By the time I'd finished doing this exercise, there was no one else in the entire world that could have treated my neck, because I actually trusted these people that they knew what they were talking about. So that's how a blog can work. And I use that as the best example because I actually still go to SB Sports Massage and I still see the same person, and I wouldn't go anywhere else. So from writing that blog, they have gained a customer, and a very loyal customer, and I would probably also recommend. So it's understanding then the difference between what we see in a website and what Google sees in a website. So this is what we see, this beautiful picture on my website with all the colours and the nice fonts and our on-brand stuff. That's what we see. What Google sees from that same little snippet of our website there is this section here. So it just sees the code. So all it's got to reference is that list of code. So it's getting this to look nice for people and read well, and then matching up this so that we can define to Google what it's about, because it can't see the images. So this is what we need to have a quick look at, and we're going to have a look at the blog and how it looks like, what it looks like to Google. So there's lots of things that it sees. It sees, first of all, your page title, and we're going to look at those in a moment. It also sees things in order. So when we write a blog, it allows us to title things, and it's cleverly labelled H1 to H6. And if you started on H6 and put H1 at the bottom, Google would get all confused. And what a lot of people do is they use a H1 at the top, and then they use lots of different sizes of titles going down. That just confuses Google, because it wants to read from the top to bottom of a page, going from H1 to H6, because that's telling it, this is the most important bit, this is the next bit, this is the next bit. And the keywords have to be used continuously throughout, and we also then need to build it up to have related keywords. So the text also has to have the right volume of keywords. If you just wrote a book, if you just wrote a blog about tension headaches and neck pain, tension headaches and neck pain, tension headaches and neck pain in every single sentence, A, nobody would read it, and B, Google would know you're trying to trick it. So you can't do that. There's a set amount, a percentage of keywords. And you've got to check something called the readability. I'm going to teach you later how the readability works. And it likes to have some content to chew on. These minimalistic, great new websites that have just got icons are superb. They work really quickly. But if somebody's looking for information, they're researching, there's not enough information there for them to look up, but there's also not enough information for Google. Oh, Alice is going to have to go. Yes, you can have a copy of the recording, Alice. And very nice to have had you with us. But we will send it to you. You might need to remind us. So it also likes your site to have authority, and ways to give your site authority is for other people to link to it. So the be all and end all would be having a blog that you've written that other people think is actually worth linking to. So somebody else then takes your blog and sends a link to it. We can kind of cheat this a little bit by sending links to the blog all the time ourselves. We can then write an article, say in LinkedIn, that is a little bit, maybe a snippet from the blog, and we put that into LinkedIn, and at the end, it then links through to that blog. So keywords are one of the key most important things when it comes to writing your blog. I'm not suggesting you choose your blog because of keywords, but be mindful of the keywords that are in there. So understanding what people search for in Google is important. So somehow Danny at SB Sports Massage knew I would be looking for tension headaches and neck pain, and he wrote a blog that had those exact words in that I typed into Google, and he's in Chorley and I was looking in Chorley. So you can see how this all starts to actually work in practice. When you see the examples in real life, you see how these keywords work. There's a lot of science goes on behind keywords. We as a company spend an absolute fortune on software that looks at keywords, but it's not actually that complicated. Think about what you would search. That's one way of doing it. It's not always the best way. One of the things about what you would search is you're the expert in that field. So you tend to search for things by the terminology that you use. But what do actual real people search for when they're looking for your type of service? You can ask people how they found you. So if you have someone ring you up and say, I'd like to make an appointment, I found you on the internet, ask them actually what did they search for or what they were looking for. Don't ask them where they found you, because they'll just say on the internet, and pretty much it won't matter whether it's social media or anywhere, they'll just tell you it's on the internet. So ask how they found you and what they searched for. And be aware that people do search in social media for keywords as well. In Instagram, they will use a hashtag. In LinkedIn, they'll just type it in the search, and the same on Facebook. And we can use tools like our AdWords account. Even if we don't use AdWords, we can set up an AdWords account and we can look at what some habits are. What type of words are people looking for when they're searching your type of business? So if you are in a very, very specific sector, it's a lot easier. If you're more generalized, like for example, if you're making handbags, it's more difficult to find a search term, because the search term handbags is going to be really, really difficult because we're up against all the big guys. So we need to find a way of talking about our product in something more specific. So let's look at the type of keywords that people use. There's main keywords and there's long tail keywords, and then there's questions. We also type in, so for example, a main keyword would be handbags. A long tail keyword would be environmentally friendly handbags. We might put a question, like mine with my neck pain, maybe put treatment for or something like that. We also compare two things. We put subject versus subject. So cryotherapy versus something else, etc. People are rather prone to putting what is the best treatment for, what is the best way of doing that type of thing. And they also, as I did, I typed Chorley, but I could also put near me. I'm of that generation that still thinks that I have to put Chorley into Google. I know I don't, because for a living, I know Google knows where I'm sitting and it will deliver me local information, but I still have to type it into the search. So let's look at main keywords. So in my example there, I'd used a whole load of keywords: neck pain, tension, headache, and I'd added Chorley in there as well. So there's not that many searches on that, but when somebody is looking for it, the click rate's quite low. But once I found it, the chances of me converting to being a customer, then that's very, very high, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. So we need to be writing information that is getting people to read it, to give them exactly what they're looking for. So there's less competition, but the conversion rate is higher. So more specific long-term keywords gives you less volume, but it's more relevant to your business, so you're more likely to get customers from it. So treatments for tension, headaches near me would be a nice long term that somebody might type into Google, and these are long tail keywords. Our searches in Google, when I look at the statistics for Google, something like 30% of searches now are over 4 keywords, because it's changed. I don't know about you, but I actually get quite frustrated now, because I type something into Google and all I ever seem to get is Amazon, eBay, John Lewis, and all the big names, because everything I look for, they have got so much SEO on those keywords. So I'm having to put more and more words in to get the right information back, or sometimes I will actually try a different search engine like Yahoo. So location and specific. So let's look at cupcakes, because it's a nice easy one and it's getting a bit later on now in the afternoon. So let's look at cupcakes. Handmade cupcakes in Bolton, or personal cupcakes near me. These are all things that people might search. Best cupcakes in Preston, design my own cupcakes. And if I'm a manufacturer, I'm going to be looking on a national level, I'd put cupcake manufacturer. So those are an example of different types of keywords and different types of things you might write an article or a piece on if you were a cupcake manufacturer. And using different keywords, once you've got it, you appear in different parts of Google. So you'll come up in Google My Business, you'll also come up here. So for example, if I write a blog, I'll also write a post in my Google My Business, and that will again draw people into the website. And mix it up, be in different places a different number of times, so that we're mixing up those different blogs and appearing for lots of different things. So how do I get my content found in Google? It's using this SEO online. Write a blog with the right keywords in, with the right number of words and the right title, with the right image and the right copy. So that sounds really easy, because what we've done is we've realised how remarkable we are, how expert we are in what we do, and now we know the formula, or we've got an idea for the formula of what we're going to do. So how do we actually go about doing it? Well, we can use lots of free tools if we're looking at measuring ourselves and working within our website to see whether Google is liking it. Yoast is one of those in WordPress. You can add Yoast for free, and Yoast will tell you how well you're doing. It's a little bit irritating. So let me show you, for example, here is a blog about being remarkable. I've tagged it Business Owners International Women's Day, and that's where I started with this course. So I thought it'd be an interesting blog to show you. And this is a list of different blogs that we've added into this website. So how do I start? And what I'm going to do is, in a moment, I'm going to take you live into the back of a website, and I'm going to show you the actual process of building a blog and writing some information, how to check it, how to make sure the readability. And what we've done on this website, we're going to add it as a post here, and we've added Yoast, and Yoast is for SEO. It tells me how I'm doing. Readability is the score that tells me how well people will read it, and SEO is the score that tells me how Google is reading it. So what I would do is I would take the content and I would double check it. You can see all the little punctuation marks and things that need changing. That's just a Word document. So that was my blog about being remarkable. And then I'd look at the readability of the blog. Now the readability shows us different scores that are used to measure how well people read it. Now this is really complicated, it's overly complicated, but Google uses this score. It's the Flash Reading Score. It's really complex to analyse, but there it is in writing. I don't use that. I use a different free tool, and I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this is done. I thought it would be a lot more interesting to actually see how we can do this. So if you just let me queue up, and if you can just type in the chat for a moment, just as I get ready to set all this up with the different screen shares that I'm going to need, if you can just type for me whether you already have a blog. That would be a really interesting thing for me. Do you already have a blog? Have you got a blog set up? And if you have got a blog, what platform is that blog on? Oh, 12 people. I'm not going to be able to do it. Nope, Tracy hasn't got a blog. I set up a blog in my WordPress site. It's very new. That's Claire. Claire, you're going to be blogging by the end of today, I can guarantee it. I have some blogs, but it's been a while. I know that feeling. I'm a bit like the decorator sometimes. I'm blogging on everybody else's website and not on my own. John is setting up a website with a blog in WordPress. Brilliant. So this is going to be great for you. Lucy, framework blog page, but nothing written on your WordPress. Brilliant. So as I'm guessing, a private one on Blogger, not really used it for 9 months. On your website, you'll be blogging in WordPress. Catherine, brilliant. Tim, you started one years ago. You've not added to it for 8 years. Yours is one of the websites that I go to and thinks, oh, he's not done anything for 8 years. So we have to change that. Hayley, you've got one on Wix. Brilliant. Bear with it, because all of this information is also going to be useful for all of those websites. So just let me... I'm just going to bring up a application that I use. And anybody that does websites and builds websites hates me for showing you this, because people use this a lot. So I start off and I write my blog in Word. Nothing more exciting than that. I don't have any sort of strange facilities to do this in. And then what I do is I run it through this little chap. And this is the Hemingway app. And it's a great way Hopefully you can see my screen. This is called Hemingway. Let me show you the URL. Hemingwayapp.com. Okay, and this is what comes up. And this is a way of checking your writing and making it have a better readability. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about readability, and I'm going to talk to you about what all these things mean. So the first thing you do is you clear it, and then you type your blog information in there. Oh, and this is our blog about being remarkable that was for International Women's Day. So I've put that in there, and I can then go into that and I can find where it's got problems on the readability. The readability score of this, I've not put the full blog in, the readability score is around 8. So that's not too bad. I would be quite happy writing at 8, but this then allows me, Claire said, I told her about this weeks ago and it's really helped her. I love it because if I do it into my website and use Yoast, it doesn't suggest where I'm wrong, it just tells me I'm wrong. So if I put it through Hemingway first, then it's a great tool, particularly when you start writing. And what you'll do is you'll get used to rephrasing things so that you don't write at such a high grade. And I'm going to talk in a moment about what these grades mean. But anything between 5 and 9, maybe if you're talking more technical terms, more technical language about specific things, then you might want to go a little bit higher. But it helps you shorten sentences. So it says that I've got 3 sentences that are just too hard to read. And we'll look at this one at the top on March the 8th, World celebrates International Women's Day. And then we've got this sentence here. And the reason it's too complicated is it's just too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check that out. And I'm going to put a few more full stops in there because you would die before you breathed with this long sentence. And sometimes we get so excited when we're writing that we don't allow people to read. How well are we doing at achieving gender equality, and where is your business up to? And then I'm going to change that slightly, and I'm going to put that like this. And then I'm going to reduce the number of difficult sentences. And literally, I'm going to go through this whole thing. It will tell me that it's got complex words like demonstrate. I then decide, do you know what, will I change it? Maybe I'll put show instead of there. And that immediately has made it look better. And what I'm looking for is this readability score down here to drop. So this is the Hemingwayapp.com. All you do is you take your content from your website and you push it through here. And it will give you lots and lots of things. But we do need to kind of understand what all of these things are. So that gives you a really good example of how we would start. So we start off with an idea. We think about the keywords. We think about the keywords for that topic. And then we start to build our blog story. And it should be a story. I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint. And that's so much more easy than using this flash reading score, because I don't have to worry about the total word, total sentences, syllables, etc., etc. It's done it all for me. It's built into there. Where the flash reading score is very, very clever and Google uses it, it's not really that much different to this, which is Hemingway. And what Hemingway is doing is it's checking all these things that Google really don't like. Should the score be high or low? I'm going to go through the score. It needs to be kind of round about 5 to 8. If you're writing at about 14, it's too complicated and people won't read it. I'm going to show you some examples, so bear with and you'll see. So what that is there is what we were looking at before, where I've corrected the front bit. And it checks readability and something called a passive voice. I have to be honest, when I first got into this, I didn't really understand what a passive voice was. Now I'm going to give you some examples on what all these things are. I'm going to give you an example here. So this piece over here scores a 12 in Hemingway, and it's quite colloquial. It doesn't matter if you work from home in a busy office, sell products online, or offer your services face to face. It's quite colloquial, it's quite easy to read. Compared to, we blend deep professional expertise and extensive industry knowledge with a friendly, accessible approach to meeting our clients' very specific insurance needs. Both these things about the same thing about insurance. This one scores at a 12. This one has lost me at that first paragraph. So that is comparing two different grades of text, if you like. And you can see why some companies don't hold people on their website. They just lose it because there's just too many words there. And you've got to kind of give people what they're looking for so that they want to then go on and read more. So Hemingway checks the text to establish the score, and it goes from grade 1, grade 2, etc. Anything above a grade 9 is considered okay. A 10 is probably just on the edge of okay. And the lower the grade, the better it is. Ernest Hemingway's work is estimated to read, and think how complicated his books are, but they read between 4 and 6 grade level of readability, which means that they're really, really engaging. They're easy to read. You read from one section to the other, which is why it's called the Hemingway app. And I try and make my writing for blogs between a 5 and an 8, depending on how technical the subject is. So if I'm writing about some sort of complex medical condition or medical treatment, then it's obviously going to probably be round towards the 8 mark. But I try and get it down below 8 if I can, because it is people that are reading it, generally not people who are specialists or experts. So the couple of things that Hemingway looks at is, number one is using adverbs. I don't know if it's our conditioning at school, but we do tend to use a lot of adverbs when we're writing. They're qualifiers, but they can weaken the way the sentence works. So here's an example. The blog posts simply show different aspects of academic writing. So that using the word simply is not really strengthening that verb. So we change it to the blog posts show different aspects of academic writing, and Google will think that is much more forceful, much more powerful. So all Hemingway will do is it will pick up, Michaela, you don't need an adverb there. It was enough to say show, and there's more power with show. Okay, Claire, I will answer some of these questions as we come to the end of this section. Does that answer your question? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm reading the chat as I'm trying to do it. I'm going to move it so I'm not looking at it because it's distracting. I'm not ignoring you, I just have to move it. Now, here's the big one, passive voice. I can pretty much say that I used to write in a really passive voice, and now I don't, because I've done this so many times now. I know where it picks up a passive voice, so I know I'm writing in one. I also know how to correct it. So if we go back to the Hemingway app, it picks up so many versions of it, so many parts of your blog are too passive. Google likes you to be very, very defined and very definite. So let's look at a passive voice. Most of it is it's natural to write in a passive voice, particularly if we're not a confident person, I think. So here's a really simple example of passive voice. The muffins were baked. So in the past, were baked. The active voice would give you the pastry chef baked the muffins. So still the same words, but a much more active sentence. It takes some practice. It takes some putting into Hemingway, allowing it to pick up your passive voice and changing the structure of the sentence. So the second sentence shows you that the subject, the pastry chef, actually performed the action. It's not like a sort of, oh, it's just like somebody baked the muffins, there's nothing really there. The pastry chef baked the muffins. It's much more direct, it's much more stronger, and it doesn't have a passive voice in it. So it's a bit like the offside rule in football. It's really difficult to explain it, but then when you see it and you see examples of it, and Hemingway picks it up, you start to write. As you start writing more and more stuff, you start to actually write in an active voice. I generally write between 5 and 8, graded, with no passive voice, and then I feel really good. So it also, there's words, and you'll notice that we saw that when we edited my blog, words and phrases sometimes have simpler alternatives. And what it's saying is, don't show off with your fancy words because people won't like it. In some cases you need them, but you don't need to fill it with lots and lots of words just for the sake of words. So you can sometimes use a simpler word, and what's good about Hemingway is it shows you what words to use. If you're doing academic writing, there's going to be lots of phrases in there that use academic language, but you don't necessarily have oh gosh, that's too much of a long one. I will answer you, Shelley, but I will come to you just shortly. So if I'm writing academically, the link words and things in between those academic sentences don't need to use complicated words. So we can make it easier with being able to string sentences together. So it doesn't mean you don't ever use a technical term. It doesn't mean you don't use your academic language. It just means the introduction and the bits around it are a lot softer. And most of these words you don't really want to change if you're writing about something like a treatment or something technical, but you're just going to simplify the words around. That's pretty much what I'm saying. And you're writing specifically for your target audience. So if you're writing to your peers and you're a doctor, then you write specifically for that target audience. It is probably going to be more complex than if you're writing to people who might be your patients. So it's the same when, like with the blog for the neck, he used some technical terms that I associated with because I've had a neck injury, so I'm aware of those terms. I want to know that he knows about those terms, but I don't want him to go into the depth of it. I don't want to be talked to like I'm a physiotherapist or I'm doing a degree in it. So using the correct terminology for the right audience. So who are your people? Okay, sentences can be really hard to read as well. So the Hemingway editor points out to you that this sentence is just too complex. People are going to run out of breath, if you like. So a good way of when you first start writing is to take your writing and read it out loud and see whether you can actually deliver it in sentences that don't make you go blue in the face. So it's a really good way of starting to write. Okay, so try and break it up. Make it into shorter sentences if you're writing for online. It's not a book, it's a blog. And although it should tell a story and it should flow nicely, small sections are much preferred by the algorithms that are going to be looking for it. So if some sentences are long, you can shorten them. And Hemingway's really good at pointing it out, saying these sentences are really too long, Michaela, put some more full stops in. And I sort of have in the back of my mind, I think it was from English at school, where it is start a new paragraph, start a new paragraph. It doesn't like 300 words in one big block. We like it in nice little parcels that we can read with headers and titles in there as well. So some sentences that are really hard to understand because there's too many words and too many adjectives and too many adverbs into them. So sometimes we like to show off with our literary expertise, and Google doesn't really like that. He likes to see sentences that real people are going to read and then move on to the next sentence, and that shows engagement. So if you imagine Google, somebody, this Google algorithm is sitting there and all it wants to do is please people. It wants to deliver the right information with the right words, because then it knows you're talking about the right thing, and then when it's delivered it, it wants to see that you're actually reading it. And the only way it's got of measuring that is that it is holding your attention. So the first thing is, how long did somebody stay on the page? And for 300 words, they need to have stayed a minute or so, maybe 2-3 minutes. And then did they click onto something else in your website? If they did that, Google's going to say, yeah, thumbs up, this is a good page. I'll show that to somebody else. So what do we actually blog about? So this is the biggest question. This is the one where I get to in the workshop and I say, okay, what would you blog about? And people say, oh, well, this is why I don't blog. So one of the things I know from the businesses that I work with is if we didn't have a plan, then we wouldn't be able to do the blogs. So I'm going to show you and share with you the form that I sent out to you, and we're going to start creating our own blog. So I've introduced my own blog. I created it since COVID-19 took over our lives. So if you've got time, I can share that. But the first thing I wanted to share with you is that spreadsheet that helps us to develop content. We see in the spreadsheet. Yeah? Yeah? So hopefully you've all got this spreadsheet in front of you. Yes, you've all got the spreadsheet up. I'm going to show you how to use it. And it's not really very complicated, but it's something that, what happens with me when I'm for my own website, and probably Anne, you're suffering from the same thing as me. I've got loads of great ideas. I'm a bit time challenged sometimes. And because I don't know what I'm going to be writing about, I don't know where to start. So the first thing is knowing where to start. So what I find, and now let's face it, a lot of us have got a little bit more time on our hands. So this is a good thing. What we can do is we can plan our blog content for at least the next 6 months, if not a year. And I'll tell you how you can do it, because you know what's coming up. You know we're all going to eventually get back to normal. You know we're going to have certain topics that we're going to be talking about, particularly in your own industries. And here is the blog content that I've got planned for Enterprise for All, actually. So my first one is we've been looking at being remarkable. And this is my 12-month plan or my 6-month plan. I blog probably 3-4 times a month on this one. So there's lots of things. My next one is The Power of Positivity, which is by ABL. And that one is a guest blog, so I don't need to write it, which is always good. And then Finding How to Be You in a New Way, that's a challenge for you, Anne Williamson. That's your blog that's going to go on our website, hopefully. And then we're going to talk about using technology to support remote working, applying for grants, staff returning after being furloughed, you're welcome, Anne, and getting back online and sharing the new normal. So we've got lots of content that we're going to do. If we didn't plan it, what would happen is we get to work that day and we say, right, what are we going to write about today? Let me think of something. And we probably wouldn't be able to think of it. And eventually what would happen is we would do nothing. So by thinking of a number of blogs and writing them down, that's our first step. So the reason I sent you this spreadsheet is so you can populate it. So you can sit tonight or tomorrow and you can think about what blogs you've got in your head to write. Using the keywords that, so staff returning after being furloughed is going to be something that people are typing into Google in a couple of months' time. So I'm predicting, if I go further down on this, what I'm going to be seeing is talking about going back to school. I'm going to be talking eventually about Halloween. I'm going to be talking about Christmas, the things that happen every year, so that I'm driving my content to suit what's actually happening in the real world. Once I've got that, I can put a little note. So on my Being Remarkable blog, for example, my research and collaboration was with Google. The Power of Positivity, I'm doing that with Latif. And I'm deciding where I'm going to put this stuff. So what purpose is it? It's promoting the webinar, in this case, Being Remarkable. And the area I want to reach is Lancashire, because we're in Lancashire. So it's giving me an idea of what sort of information that I can create. I will pause in a moment and take your questions and answers, but I'm just going to show you the next development. So once I've got that, I know that I'm going to be talking about Being Remarkable on the 15th of April. I'm going to write my blog, which you've seen my blog. I wrote it in Word and I ran it through Hemingway, and then I'm going to put that onto the website. So this is going to be driving people back to our website all the time. And the reason for that is awareness. I want people to see us as aware, but also, and I'm going to type this in now, it is to get sign-ups for the webinar. Okay, so that populates in there. When I need to have it completed, and I'm going to schedule it. I can show you how I can schedule that as well later on if you want me to, and what post type it is, and so on and so forth. I then talk about what, if I'm using it further down the line, I can take that same blog. Now, I call this repurposing, but it's not really repurposing. And one of the things people do is repurpose blogs that they've had before. So they take a blog that they've used before, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they repurpose it for now. But what I'm doing is I'm using that same blog and I'm creating a LinkedIn article with the same sort of phraseology and title. And I'm linking back to the blog in the website. So I'm going to give a little bit of what I've said in my blog in the LinkedIn article, and I'm going to click a crafty little read more and send people back over to my website. Okay, so I can do the article on LinkedIn. I can also do a post on LinkedIn, putting a link into the blog directly. So that's 2 things on LinkedIn over that space of a month. And when I complete that by, and where that's going and what the reason is. Also, I can copy and paste the link and put it into my Facebook. So my Facebook then sends people back to my website. So I'm creating lots of different posts. And if I'm really clever and I section it, and I section my blog into 4, I could probably get 4 Facebook posts out of the same blog, sending people back to the same blog, if you can understand what I mean. So if I put 4 sections in and I'm writing about 4 related subjects, then I create that in my Facebook. Those types of things are better in your social media than other things that you do, rather than just put a picture and say, oh, I'm saying this, because it's bringing people back to your website all the time. And the more people that go to your website, the better your SEO is going to be. I can then put it on Twitter. I can add it to Instagram and talk about it. I can't put the links in Instagram, so I've not put my Instagram on there. I put it on Twitter with a link back to the website, and all the time I'm building that awareness through my website. I can also put a webinar. I can also create an event and write about what happens in the webinar. So I can then go back into my social media and thank you all, and put a link back to the blog in my webinar. So all of that stuff I am then sending. I'm creating links. It's like a big spider's web capturing everybody to go back and read my Be Remarkable blog. So you can see how that, once you've planned it, actually helps you, because what you're not doing is getting that little message from Facebook saying you've not put anything on Facebook for a while, people on your Facebook haven't seen you, and you get that horrendous guilt complex that you've not been on there, so you put something half-hearted and then nothing happens to it. Here we've started to create a plan of how our blog, our one blog on Being Remarkable, that maybe took an hour and a half to write, we ran it through Hemingway, it's creating all of this material here to go out, and it's good stuff on social media. It's not rubbish. It's not me picking a picture and screenshotting something and putting some words over it. This is good stuff. This is about being remarkable. And then, do you know what? By the end of the week, I'll be on the power of positivity. And we'll start that same process. So through the whole of April, we will populate this. I will say where it's going to go. And I can even, once I've got the blog, I can start to schedule it to go onto my Facebook. I can schedule it to go onto my other channels. If you're using Hootsuite, for example, you can get it going across all your channels. But I've got to sit down and do this work. But really, all I've done is think of some blog titles. Think of where I'm going to research or I'm going to collaborate with to do this. And then I'm going to end up with all of it. Once this is populated, It's wonderful because I've got all of this content ready to go out on my social media. My website's really nice. It's got something new to send people. And I can actually be really, really bold then, and I can send it in a newsletter. Hey, look at my new blog about being remarkable. Who would like to come to my webinar? And that then creates more content. So I might even bob another line in here. Let's put another row because I missed that. Newsletter. So we've also created a newsletter link. So that's how you would complete your plan. And the challenge really is to do that now while we're off. Because if you can do this while we're off and we've got a little bit of time to think about these things, think about what people in your world are going to be looking for, wanting to find out about, wanting to read as they go back to that new normal, then we can start to create it. Use your skills and expertise to talk about the topics and subjects that you know you're good at. Get the easy ones up there first because that'll give you the confidence, and start to populate this whole process. And eventually what you end up with is something that you can stick to, and it's really, really helpful. Just going to stop screen sharing because we've got a couple of questions now on the Q&A. How often should you blog and how many words? Okay, so a blog should be a minimum of 300 words, an absolute minimum. I always try for 500 to 800 words, and I work on that. I'm a little bit old-fashioned. Younger people tend to think 300 to 500 words. I like a good 800 words, and sectioned into smaller sections so that it's not just one massive pile of text. So in bite-sized pieces, so that you know yourself when you read down, you read the headers first, and Google does the same. It reads to see that you've got associated headers, and then it fills in with the information. How often should you blog? That is entirely up to you. I would always say at least once a month, but if you can do 2 a month, it's great because it populates your social media with something meaningful. So if you put a blog on, I don't know, somehow it gives it that much more gravitas. So if I see something that links to a blog, I think, oh, it must be right because it's on a blog. So we answer those 2 questions. Has anybody else got any more questions before we move further on? I'm just reading. You don't have to do the blog, Anne. Can you blog too much? People can get sick of seeing you saying, look, I've done a blog, look, I've done a blog, look, I've done a blog, I think. I think initially, no, just try it. Just flex your muscles, try it and see how you get on. And it'd be quite an interesting thing to just see. And then if people stop reading, stop clicking the links, then just reduce it a little bit. Can you blog without your website being live? You can, but not on your website. You would have to build a separate blog, I think. Let me check. Helen, are you in WordPress? I'm just checking. It's going to be difficult. Actually, no, you could put your blog on and not have your website built. Okay, so from Tim Fieldstead, just wanted to confirm if I use WordPress and then connect a domain and it's hosted, then I own the content. If it's a free blog site, you don't own it. Yeah, you've got no control over it if you put it onto a free blog site. So Helen's just building a website. As soon as you get your website up, you can just put a holding page up saying coming soon, and you can start blogging. The other thing you can do is you can start putting a blog into the background. I can show you a blog if you would like, and I can show you how I would put a blog onto a website. I'm going to use my own. I'm not going to use a client's one, and it's a new one that I've just started to build, so I can play around with that a little bit more as well. So if you take a break just for a couple of minutes, because we've been going for another hour, maybe grab yourself another drink. I'll set up the back of the WordPress site so you can see into the back of it, and I'll show you how I would actually put a blog on. If anybody needs to leave, then are there any more questions before we go on to that actual demonstration? Shaheen has not received the template yet. How much longer will I be? Debbie, it will probably take about 20 minutes. It's an optional extra if you want to watch. Hayley needs to go and see the littlies. I know the feeling. Mine are out in the garden and they're not so little. So it's fine. And if anybody needs some help, then we can set something up so that we can do a screen share with them later on. So it's not, all is not lost if you can't go in. And sometimes it might be you've had enough information, you're feeling really invigorated and you want to go away and try and write something. But if you want to actually see the practical side, then we can always do that another time as well.